Hi, welcome back to Space Thoughts. Today I'm going to do the second installment of my video for my that I've called basically my hot list, or what's hot for the third quarter 2020 issue of the Pressy. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Pressy is a space law and policy briefing letter that I put out quarterly with 4 quarterly issues and some special issues sprinkled in between those. Fundamentally, yes, it's just a subscription letter, so I do have paying subscribers to it. But what I'm trying to do with this video, and this is the second of the series of these videos, is just go through the issue that I put out just about a week ago and go over what I think are some of the hot things that, or really important things that I cover. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it because, like, this briefing letter was 68 pages. There's a lot of detail in there. But if you want to become a subscriber, I can show you how to become one at the end of this video. So with that said, I'm going to get right to what's hot for third quarter 2020. Starting out is Space Policy Directive 5. Now, this one actually caught a few people by surprise, myself included, and this was unveiled by the Trump administration about a month ago. And basically, this deals specifically with cybersecurity for outer space systems, and not just for national security systems, but for civilian systems that deal with economic and civil space systems that deal with NASA. Because one of the things that people don't really understand, but has become more prolific, is that cyberspace and outer space are becoming intertwined. Because, well, satellites are integrated into our information system. For whether we do swipe a credit card, or we are looking on our phones, or using GPS, or whether they're official government communications or military communications, cyber is very interrelated into command and control and our economy and such. So this is very important. And Space Policy Directive is basically directing the U.S. government, the federal government, and the agencies to take measures to ensure its security. That's it in a nutshell. Again, getting into it is really too much for the scope of this video. NASA solicitation for space resources. This was a very interesting development on the space resources front, where NASA has set out a solicitation to commercial companies for how much, basically to make bids on or give cost estimates for what it would cost for a civilian mission to go to the moon and harvest lunar samples and return them and sell them to NASA. Now, fundamentally what this is doing, this is taking advantage of the space resource law that was passed in 2015. And it's interesting because this is basically setting, if this would ever come to fruition where a company was awarded a contract and they actually harvested lunar materials and sold them to the government, it would pretty much say, okay, wow, this space resource thing isn't just theory anymore, somebody actually did it. So again, this is just a solicitation. It isn't actually a contract award, but it's very significant because it shows the U.S. is taking the idea of space resources very seriously, compounding on the executive order that was made last April, and also with the Artemis Accords that talk about space resources as well. So again, this is a very important topic that I talk about more in my briefing letter. FCC Final Rule on updating rules for orbital debris mitigation. There was a lot of controversy surrounding this one. There was a hearing back in June on this matter, and fundamentally what they do, the FCC is coming in and say, okay, we're revamping the rules for satellite operators for orbital debris mitigation. Now, there were a lot of controversial aspects to it. Indemnification was one that didn't make it into it, but minus the indemnification rule and a few other things, the final rules were actually completed and presented. And now they still have to go through the Comptroller General and Congress and be approved by them before they can actually take effect. However, this is very significant. Camden Final Environmental Impact Statement. The Camden Spaceport down in Georgia has been looking to get a license to actually operate a spaceport in Camden County, Georgia. So fundamentally, one of the steps in getting that license is the FAA has to do what's called an environmental impact statement under a federal law called NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act. So this has been highly controversial. There's been a couple lawsuits that have been filed. Actually, one is still going on right now as we say it. But fundamentally, the FAA has come back and says, we're going to issue the final environmental impact statement. We're not going to take any further comments on it. we're going to give it to them. So this is a significant step towards Camden County actually getting a license to operate a spaceport, and makes it's very significant. Now, I want to emphasize this isn't a license; they haven't got the license yet. But once the FAA issues that final EIS and say, okay, we're good with this, everything should be clear for getting a spaceport license. Space Force Capstone publication. I spent a good amount of time in this issue talking about this particular matter, and fundamentally what this is Space Force has come out with a doctrine. It's basically saying this is where we're going to operate, this is how we're going to operate, and this is the philosophy under which we're going to operate. Now, I looked at it and I kind of had a few issues. I have kind of a few issues with the idea of, what is outer space, and I think I've talked about, the idea of the delineation between space and outer space and how the U.S. doesn't really recognize that. My concern with this is that might, this capstone document, might actually muddy that water a little bit and actually cause some problems for that U.S. policy position. But fundamentally, this is a very big publication, and I spent a lot of time and a lot of pages in the Pressy talking about this. Very significant because fundamentally it lays out the Space Force, this is who we are and this is what we do. Outline on basic plan for space policy Japan. This is a major update for Japan's space policy. Just came and very robust, identifies all the three sectors: private, commercial, and civil space. And it addresses international law, engaging in international law, and fundamentally it's really an addendum, an update for Japan's national space policy. Again, a really significant hurdle, significant event for Japan, because I think the more coherent a space policy is enunciated by a state, the more confident I am that they have a real big, how can you say, grasp of the importance of outer space. And Japan certainly does. And as you can see a little bit later in this video, that focus and that realization of the significance of outer space is going to make Japan a major player, in my opinion, and a partner for the U.S. International Open Letter on Space Mining. We talked about the Artemis Accords in the last video, the last hot stuff video that I did. And basically, this is a pushback against the Artemis Accords. And fundamentally, a group of experts have got together, experts, national security people, legal people, academia. They've all gotten together and signed a letter and sent it to the UN Secretary General and basically said, we think there should be a UN resolution calling for a multilateral framework or treaty, in a sense, for space mining or space resources. Now, this is a complete opposite direction of the idea of space resources being pushed by the U.S. And as recognized by Luxembourg and also the UAE. Fundamentally, they want a top-down approach, and it's funny because it's interesting because some of the individuals who actually signed this letter come from states that have signed to or actually acceded or ratified the Moon Agreement. So this is out there. I don't think it's going to, my opinion is, it may gain a little bit of traction, but I don't consider it as something that's going to be acted on immediately if it doesn't fizzle out at all. Joint exploration of intent for lunar cooperation. This is very interesting because this deals with the Artemis program directly. And this is an agreement between the United States, between NASA and the Japan Space Agency. And fundamentally, it's about Artemis cooperation in terms of exploration, technology, etc. Now, I want to emphasize this. This isn't saying Japan has signed the Artemis Accords, because they haven't. But what this is saying, they're basically this is between two federal agencies, one from the U.S., one from Japan, saying we're going to cooperate on the Artemis program and move this forward. So I find this very significant, especially, and again, as I mentioned before, I think Japan is becoming a very major player, and probably right now is a major player in outer space. This kind of adds on to the previous item, 7th meeting of the U.S.-Japan Comprehensive Dialogue on Space. And this is something that this has been an ongoing annual discussion which alternates between the U.S. and Japan. And they discuss all aspects of space policy, space law, cooperation not only in outer space activities as far as technology goes, but also on the international front. In other words, how are we going to approach the international law aspect of this in bodies like the UN. We're going, in other words, let's work together to form norms or standards and shape international law in a direction that's going to benefit, our national interests. So this is a good thing. It happened, like I said, this is the 7th meeting. The 8th meeting is going to be in Washington, D.C. The exact date hasn't been announced yet. But again, this is very significant. And like I said, I think Japan is a very major player right now. And things like things like the outline for the basic plan on space policy, the JEDI agreement, and the 7th meeting all tell me that, Japan and the U.S. are really kind of coming together on this whole Artemis idea and lunar exploration. And I wouldn't be surprised in the near future if you find, in the very near future, if you find they actually become one of the first signatories of the Artemis Accords. But again, will remain to be seen, but it's something to keep an eye out for. The space law games, and this is something a colleague and friend of mine has been working with, along with another colleague in the UK, called the space law games. And this is actually a very interesting program that it basically takes a proactive approach to outer space activities in orbit, and it deals with what if situations, what if this happens in orbit, and what do you do? And it actually provides a bunch of scenarios and exercises. And in fact, they had a few months ago, they had a program on GEO, where, basically a program dealing with GEO. And actually, my two colleagues were kind enough to actually write up a summation of what the space law games is for this issue, as well as write up a summary of how this GEO event for the space law games went. So it was again, I really thank him for it, because it's really an informative piece on basically what this is about and what happened with this GEO event, and kind of reveal some of the some of the pragmatic aspects of how things are going to unfold in the future. But again, that is in the issue of the Pressy for my subscribers. Now, that's basically my hot list for third quarter. This is the cover sheet for the third quarter 2020, my 42nd issue of the Pressy. If you want to become a subscriber to the Pressy, I'd really welcome it. There's information at thepressy.net how you can become a subscriber. If you'd like a free issue of the Pressy to look at it, there's the email address info@thepressy.net. Send me an email and ask for a complimentary copy. Now, the way this works is, if you ask for a complimentary copy, I'm not going to send you the current issue. What I'll do is I'll send you the second quarter 2020 issue for you to look at and evaluate for yourself, and might even throw in a special issue. I might be persuaded to throw in a special issue as well, to give you a look at how basically some of how I do this and what the Pressy is like. And if you like it and you subscribe, great. I'll send you the the third quarter 2020 issue and get you started. Now, subscriptions are for a year. I basically have special rates for nonprofit organizations. If you're a nonprofit or belong to a nonprofit, I also have a special pricing structure for academia and government employees, whether you're government, military employees, even if you're retired, I will offer you that special discount rate as well. And if you're a student, I have a special student rate that makes it affordable. Hey, I was a student once, and I know finances are tough, but this, I try to make it a little easier for students to actually, get this information. Again, info@thepressy.net. Send me your email. I'll gladly send you a copy. And of course, you can go to thepressy.net. That basically looks at, that brings up the page and has my pricing structure below and gives you a brief description of my letter. So that, in a nutshell, is what I have for the third quarter 2020. And until the next time, one thing, please, if you like this video, please like it, please subscribe. It does help the channel and helps get the word out here for this video, so I would appreciate it. So now that fall's settling in and I have a little bit more time on my hands from other projects, I'm probably going to be doing a few more of these videos, get things done more frequently. And again, a lot of topics to talk about, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Have a good day.